Boy, am I tired. I hope you all are having a great day. I was watching the news as I was going cleaning the kitchen, came across this video, and I wanted to offer some insight because I have some unique perspectives and stories about this that I think a lot of people will be, non-military people at least, it'll be kind of new and insightful too, about how and it also just kind of shows how, A, the Young Turks are uninformed, garbage, urinalists, um, who peddle in just leftist propaganda. Um, I understand they don't know this. A lot of the things I'm going to tell you. That's why. But what a normal reporter would do would be to like interview someone, do some investigative journalism, talk to people, get some insight, get a guest on there to talk about who knows what's going on. I don't know if they did or not. No, just these two. So we're gonna blast through this. I have it on a fast speed. I'm gonna try to focus. I'm tired, but I just had to do this. So here we go. It's about, first and foremost, tragedy. This is not something new to the military, but a military member killed one another. Vanessa Guillen was I believe they say, a specialist in the army, and it's tragic. My commentary and view has nothing to do at all, even remotely, in any way, shape, or form, with the case. It's all about the young turds and their spin. My heart goes out to her and her family. It's an awful tragedy, and I'll talk a little bit about it. Let's launch into it. But I want that to just be out there. This, it sounds cliche, cheesy. I say it to my daughters a lot. Um, and I don't talk to many other people, but like when we're out, when I talk about veterans and people I know that are veterans, they're my brothers and my sisters. And that's one of my sisters that passed away at the hands of one of my brothers, and that's disgusting. And that's what happens with families.
Army investigators have found remains of an Army special, Vanessa Guillen, in a shallow grave in Texas. The suspect in her murder, go to the next video that has some details on what happened to her.
The complaint says that suspect Cecily
of an Army special, Vanessa Guillen, in a shallow grave in Texas. The suspect in her murder, Aaron Robinson, who was also in the military, killed himself as officers closed in on him. However, there is a second suspect in custody, and that is the girlfriend of Aaron Robinson. Cicely Aguilar is her name. Robinson's girlfriend has been charged with evidence tampering, and she also admitted to helping Robinson dispose of Guillen's body. So this is a story that's been developing for quite some time now. There was a lot of mystery surrounding what happened to Guillen, and now, unfortunately, with the discovery of her remains, it's become abundantly clear that she was murdered, and she was murdered in an incredibly vicious and violent way. In fact, why don't we go to the next video?
And the rest, I just talk about details that are irrelevant to what I'm saying. Let me just look at this part set up for a sec. So I'm just going to move on. That's the gist of what's going on. So that's, I guess, so I'm not distorting things. That's the groundwork there. Now we're going to move on. Again, we have a tragedy here.
The family is saying, no, that is not what was going on. Robinson was sexually harassing her, and he was way more concerned about her reporting the harassment up the chain of command.
Now, I want to talk first about sexual harassment in the military and the way it works. The way it works is, if I'm going to hypothetically be a commanding officer, and you're in my case, we'll say my Marine, and you sexually harass someone. Well, there's two ways to handle it. We have what's called NJP, which is non-judicial punishment. The easiest way for me to say that is, whatever happens with an NJP stays in the military. Anything outside of that is generally a court-martial. That equates to civilian felonies or misdemeanors, and people can see that. So if I get a court-martial and I'm found guilty, I could easily have something that affects me outside and becomes more of a permanent thing, whereas a NJP, non-judicial punishment, I don't recall if I said it, is more of it's handled in-house. They may lose rank, they may lose money, and have actual things that happen to them documented, but once they get out of the military, that stays in the military. So when you have someone get sexually harassed, the first thing that they want to do is handle it in-house. They don't want, and this is the reason. Now, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but this is the way the military works. That commanding officer, when their commanding officer and their unit finds out their Marine sexually harassed someone, that commanding officer their pro and con marks. They're not called that. Goodness gracious, we get pro and cons. I forgot what they're called. Fitness reports, which is essentially their an overall assessment of their ability as an officer, physically and mentally, and performance wise, and then they add up points to promotion and all that. I'm trying to focus here. So what they want to do immediately is sweep it under the rug. That's the nature of it, because if they let it go to a court martial, that officer has now that blemish on their record. So they want to handle it in-house. So that's just the nature of the military. Now, I want to... I'll line that next one up. But that's the way that the system works. It's a CYA, cover your butt. And it rolls downhill in that regard. The sergeant doesn't want to be in trouble because he's going to be in trouble, because once the officer is in trouble, they're going to make their sergeant, and it just rolls downhill. It's a big, oh man, we got to cover up, and that's the big thing. It's a lack of integrity that officers have. I'm not going to go into my history, but I do want to talk about my history. I was part of a court martial, testifying in a court martial. I'm going to try and blast through this, and I'm sorry. The long end of it is my roommate, Scott, was dating a girl who did not tell him was dating another Scott in an attachment unit. My friend Scott, in the middle of the night, I heard like thumping on the wall. I thought he was banging straight up. It was rack hitting the wall. You know, that thump, 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 thump. Something wasn't right. I went over there. They had the horseshoe barracks where you have the 2 rooms and then they have a bathroom and you share the bathroom. We know each other. I just go over there, knock, and long story short is the other Scott was assaulting him. If you see pictures of him, my buddy looks like an alien. His head is so misshapen. Our unit's first thing was to try to blame my buddy Scott and sweep it under the rug because that's the easiest thing. I got involved as a witness in that direct incident and what led up to it because I was his roommate. I knew the girl. Again, it was just a weird thing. I'm not going to go into the detail, but I'm going to tell you. I may do, if you want to know, I can do a whole video on this or ask about it. But the long story short is how this resolved itself is, again, so my buddy was assaulted. They sent us back in the middle of a deployment to do this court martial under the direct charge of that Marine who assaulted my buddy and his direct staff sergeant. So they were in charge of us, which is awkward without getting into it. Because they tried to sweep it under the rug and we resisted, the end result was I got blasted in my remarks and sent away to another unit as soon as possible. Finished the deployment, but I got treated like the bastardized child. Sent augmented bad augments and ship units, things like that. He got it worse. They sent him home in the middle of it, not home, but back stateside in the middle of a deployment. New unit, destroyed his pros and cons, made sure to tell the new people he's going to all of these bad things. I was like, and he was guilty of, definitely, he got assaulted at night. But because when they tried to sweep it under the rug and make it we'll don't assault almost to death another Marine, dude. Don't do that. We were like, no. And we paid the price for it. That's the nature of the military, because once we initiate that, we are threatening the integrity and the future of that officer, and they are going to do everything they can. And then everyone under them is going to do everything they can, because if that officer falls, they're going to fall with them. It's ugly. It has nothing to do with the fact that any of our skin color was whatever. I'm not even going to say what the skin colors were, because it's completely irrelevant in this regard. And I guess I kind of got ahead of no, that's something separate. So just for the military aspect of it, that's very important. It's the way the military works. They don't expose their own because it exposes them in that regard. Some Marines do, and it happens. But just like every system, Marines are people. And sadly, sometimes you have a Marine who I had to deal with. And then you have other people like this. I want to get into this next part real quick because I'm starting to ramble on. But I want it to be clear that like this has nothing to do with if it's a Marine who, for example, just to make it a non-gendered thing, like so it's not like she was a woman, so they don't care. If you have two Marines who another Marine gets drunk and sleeps with another Marine's wife, and they get into a fight, and one guy gets stabbed, the first thing they'll try to do is say, "No, police, no, no, no. We'll just let's work this out." The dude is stabbed, but that is going to be the unit's first reaction to try to pull it all back in. It has its goods and it has its bads. There's a whole conversation. It's a beautiful thing in many ways. But when people use it as a tool to protect themselves, not the person who they should be using their power to protect, and they failed, they're using, okay, now I failed them. Now I need to utilize that power to protect myself, not bite the bullet and help them at this point, not to rectify the problem, not to punish the guilty parties, punish that party who caused this by being a victim. Now, this.
And Aguilar. So you would imagine, okay, well, this is a great opportunity to question Aguilar. They waited a full month before they did that. Okay,
they waited a full month before they did that.
Full month. So Jake, I want you to.
And I feel like this is such a stupid thing. I have to explain this. So let's say I hypothetically kill my twin that I don't have and bury their body somewhere, and no one has any evidence of it for a month, and everybody thinks I did it, and I'm not like, "Yup, I did it." And there's no evidence. They have no evidence. They literally say they move forward when they found the next thing, which is what they needed to move the case forward. It took them a month to do it. That's the way the law works, whether it's military or civilian or otherwise. If the guy's not like, "Yeah, I killed her. She's right over there in the desert, bro." Duh. He's going to say no and she's going to say no. What do you think they spent the month doing? Trying, prodding, and investigating, or just like, "Man, we hope this body falls from the sky"? They were probably investigating and getting nowhere. You have 3 people involved, and 2 of them are not talking, and 1 is hidden in some place they haven't found yet. Let's do the math here. If it took 30 days for them to do something, it probably took them 30 days to find that piece of evidence. This is journalism today. This is why I say they're urinalists. They're just garbage potty junk. I'm using my kids' words. I rambled on. I'm going to go to bed. I will see you all tomorrow. Take it easy, gang.